Hello guys, this is Bhavya Sharma here. Welcome back to the Med Concepts with Bhavya. Today we are back on our study table studying for the muscle attachments of the hip bone. We have already completed the features, the introduction and the side determination of the bone already. And today we are going to see the muscle attachment of the ischium. I have colored or I have marked all the muscle attachment of ischium part only. So without any delay, let's get into the video. As you already know the drill, we would go into the attachments of part by part for the bone. Okay, so first up we will see, I hope you remember the features of the bone. If not, please go back to the features video of the hip bone. I would give the link in my description below and revise once and then come back here again, because knowing the features are very important so as to remember the muscle attachments. So first we would go for the anterior superior iliac spine. We have 4 spines, right? I would not repeat everything again and again, so please go and check out for features if you're not very sure about them. So anterior superior iliac spine is this one. There are 2 attachments on this. That is, one is this one, that is the red one. That is the origin of the sartorius muscle. Again, the origin of the sartorius muscle, and then we have a ligament attaching here just laterally and above to the sartorius origin, which is the inguinal ligament. Okay, so lateral end inguinal ligament, and here on the anterior superior iliac spine we have the sartorius. So sartorius origin, sartorius muscles origin, that is why it is in red, and then in green we have the inguinal ligament. So that is all about the anterior superior iliac spine. Let's go for the other part, that is the iliac crest. Now, as we already know that the iliac crest has 3 lips, I would repeat it for you. The outer lip, this one, the middle lip and the inner lip. It is marked with the marker. So inner lip, inner lip, intermediate lip and outer lip. Outer lip is towards the acetabulum, okay, and inner lip is towards this part, that is the front part. So in the outer lip, let us see the attachments in the outer lip. That is, we have to turn to the outer side. That is this one. See, this is the marking, if you can see, the outer lip. Okay, so in the outer lip we have origin of 2 muscles, insertion of 1 muscle and then a ligament. So origin of 2 muscles are tensor fasciae lata. So first of all you need to know this is the tubercle of the ischium. Okay, so this is the tubercle of ischium. Regarding this, why I am telling you this is because keeping this in mind only we will learn the attachments. So in front of the tubercle, that is, this is the tubercle, and in front of the tubercle we have the attachment called the tensor fasciae lata. The spellings and the notes would be available on the Insta page. You can check the link down in the description for my Insta page. Okay, so tensor fasciae lata just in front of this tubercle, that is the ischial tubercle. See this red marking, tensor fasciae lata. Then another muscle that we have is latissimus dorsi. Latissimus dorsi is just behind the highest point of the ischial crest. So what is the highest point? See, if I will keep it like this, you can find out very easily that this is the highest point. So going behind again, from the highest point, that is from here, see. So from here we have this red part is the latissimus dorsi origin. So just behind the highest point, this is the highest point of the ischial crest, we have the latissimus dorsi. Then we have a insertion that I told you, which is the external oblique muscle. It starts from the front of the tubercle, that is from here, along with the tensor fasciae lata, and goes through the whole extent till here. So you can say it as anterior 2/3. It is attached or inserted into the anterior 2/3, that is from anterior till the 2/3 of the crest. So anterior 2/3. Repeating again once more, the tensor fasciae lata in front of the tubercle, the latissimus dorsi behind the highest point of the ischial crest, and the external oblique muscle in the anterior two-third. Then I also said that there is one ligament which is the fascia lata. Fascia lata I have not marked here because there was no space, but the fascia lata is present on the whole extent of the outer lip. So four things: tensor fasciae lata, muscle origins from front of this part, that is the tubercle. Then we have the latissimus dorsi from behind the highest point on the ischial crest, that is this one. This is the latissimus dorsi muscle origin. And then we have the external oblique which is present in the anterior two-thirds. And then tensor fascia lata was the muscle and fascia lata is the ligament, so don't get confused. Fascia lata is present all over the extent of the outer lip. So that is all about the outer lip. Now let's talk about the intermediate lip. Now talking about the intermediate lip. See, this is the outer lip, right? Now if you tilt it like this, you will see the intermediate lip. So in the intermediate lip, you have only one attachment, which is the internal oblique, and that is the origin. See, external oblique was inserted into the muscle, into the bone, right? But the internal oblique muscle is originating from the iliac crest, which is the intermediate area of the iliac crest. So this red part over here which I have marked, that is the so this red part which I have marked is the internal oblique muscles origination. From where does it originate? If you say it in sentence, it would be anterior two-third. So from here till here, that is till the highest point on the iliac crest, you would have the origin of the internal oblique muscle. So red color because it is originating. Okay, this is all about the intermediate line or the intermediate area. Now let us talk about the inner lip. If you tilt it like this marker, that is the black mark, is the inner lip. So inner lip has three attachments. There are two origins and one ligament. So talking about the origin, first you would have the transverse abdominis origin from the anterior two-third. So from here, see, this is the anterior and this is the posterior part, right? So from the anterior two-third, we would have the transverse abdominis muscle. So transverse abdominis origin, that is this one, red color, is in the anterior two-thirds. Again, the anterior two-thirds. So what do we see in the anterior two-thirds? In inner lip anterior two-third, we see the transverse abdominis. In middle lip, we see middle lip or intermediate lip, we see the internal oblique. And these two are origins. In outer lip, we see the external oblique in the anterior two-thirds. So we have three attachments in the anterior two-thirds in each area of the iliac crest. So we talked about the anterior two-third, which is the transverse abdominis origin. Then we have the quadratus lumboris origin in the posterior one-third. So just behind the transverse abdominis, we have the quadratus lumboris. Now we also have a ligament. Which is that ligament? The ligament name is thoracolumbar fascia or ligament. So thoracolumbar fascia is around the attachment of the quadratus lumboris. So I did not have space here, that's why I did not mark it. So here in the quadratus lumboris area, you would also have an attachment of ligament, which is the thoracofacial or thoracolumbar fascia. Okay, so three attachments in the inner lip. The first one is your transverse abdominis in the anterior two-thirds, this one. Then behind that in the posterior two-thirds, posterior one-third, anterior two-third and posterior one-third. In posterior one-third, you have quadratus lumborum, and same area, that is the posterior one-third, around the quadratus lumborum, you have the thoracolumbar fascia ligament attaching. So that is all about the lips of the iliac crest. Let us talk about the dorsal segment of the iliac crest now. Talking about the dorsal segment of the iliac crest, which is also known as the iliac tuberosity, it has four attachments in total. The first one, that is the red part, is the origin of the erector spinae muscle. So this is the origin of the erector spinae muscle from the medial slope, Then we have three ligaments attaching here. The three ligaments are, first one is your interosseous ligament. Okay, so interosseous sacroiliac ligament. Just because we have the sacroiliac joint forming here, that's why we would have the sacroiliac ligaments here. So we have three ligaments here in the iliac tuberosity. I already told you that this is known as iliac tuberosity. This one is the interosseous sacroiliac ligament, right? Then we have the iliolumbar ligament, that is the this part which is attached superiorly to the iliac tuberosity, and then we have the dorsal sacroiliac ligament which is attached posteriorly to the what? Iliac tuberosity. Again repeating, we have three ligaments over here. The iliolumbar ligament. Okay, let's go one by one. The interosseous sacroiliac ligament. Okay, then the iliolumbar ligament superiorly and anteriorly in the iliac tuberosity, and posteriorly the dorsal. So posterior means dorsal, so dorsal sacroiliac ligament. That is all about the dorsal segment of the iliac crest. Now let us talk about the next part, that is the iliac fossa or iliac surface. Okay, so in the iliac surface, we have the muscle attachment or the muscle origin called the iliacus muscle. It is very easy. Iliac fossa or iliac surface has a muscle attachment, only one muscle attachment, that is the origin of the iliacus muscle. So iliacus muscle originates from the iliac fossa or the iliac surface. Now we are done with the iliacus surface also. We will talk about attachments on the another spine, that is the anterior inferior iliac spine. So anterior inferior iliac spine is just below the anterior superior iliac spine. We have talked about the attachments on anterior superior iliac spine. We had an origin and a ligament. Similarly, here also we have an origin and a ligament. Two attachments. One is the origin, which is the red color, and then the ligament. So origin of the rectus femoris straight head. See, rectus femoris has two heads, reflected head and straight head. So the straight head gets origination from the anterior inferior iliac spine, and another attachment that we see here in the anterior inferior iliac spine is the iliofemoral ligament. So attachment of ligament called iliofemoral ligament and origin of the muscle, that is the rectus femoris. Remember the straight head. Okay, so that is all about the anterior inferior iliac spine. Next up, we will talk about the posterior border of the ilium. This is the posterior border of the ilium, as you know. So in the posterior border, we have only one attachment, that is the origin of the piriformis muscle here. So piriformis muscle, from where does it get originated? It gets originated from the upper part of the sciatic notch, greater sciatic notch. You also know that this is greater sciatic notch and this is the lesser sciatic notch. So from the upper part of the greater sciatic notch, just lateral to the sulcus, that is just beside the periocular sulcus. This is the periocular sulcus. Beside that, you have the piriformis origin. Some fibers of piriformis muscle originate from here. So from the upper part of the greater sciatic notch, just beside the periauricular sulcus. So that is all about the posterior border. Now let's go to the another surface, which is the gluteal surface. So talking about the muscle attachments, that is the origins, the first one is the gluteus maximus. Let's go as max, medius, minimus. Okay, so maximus, medius and minimus. So behind the posterior gluteal line, you already know the gluteal lines, I hope. The posterior gluteal line, the anterior gluteal line and the inferior gluteal line. So just behind the posterior gluteal line, we have the muscle attachment of the gluteus maximus. So the origin of the gluteus maximus just behind the posterior gluteal line. Then we have the gluteus medius, that is this one, which is present in between the posterior gluteal line and the anterior gluteal line. So origin of the gluteus medius is in between the posterior gluteal line and the anterior gluteal line. And the last one, which is the gluteus minimus, is from between the anterior and inferior gluteal lines. So again repeating, we have the gluteus maximus, gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. Gluteus maximus behind the posterior gluteal line. It originates behind the posterior gluteal line. Gluteus medius from in between the anterior and posterior gluteal line, and the gluteus minimus originates from between the anterior and inferior gluteal line. Another muscle that originates is the rectus femoris. Okay, so I hope you remember that the rectus femoris straight head arises from this part. I'm sorry, it's erased. That is the anterior inferior iliac spine. So the rectus femoris reflected head arises from the gluteal surface just above the acetabulum. So the gluteal surface just above the acetabulum gives origin to the reflected head of the rectus femoris. So we have four muscles over here: the gluteus maximus, medius and minimus, and then rectus femoris reflected head. Now talking about the last attachment in the gluteal surface is the ligament, which is the capsular ligament of the hip joint. So the femur and the acetabulum socket or the fossa forms the hip joint. I already told this in the features video. So to catch up or to give stability to that joint, we have ligaments and accessory structures. So one of the accessory structure is the capsular ligament of the hip joint, which attaches onto the margins of the acetabulum. So we are done with two surfaces, which are the iliac surface and the gluteal surface. Now let us talk about the periauricular surface or auricular surface. You cannot call it periauricular, I'm sorry. Periauricular is the sulcus. So you will call it auricular surface. That is this bean-shaped surface. In the auricular surface, that is this kidney bean shaped like surface, we have one attachment, that is the ligament, which is known as the ventral sacroiliac ligament. Can you now recap that we talked about dorsal sacroiliac ligament in the iliac tuberosity? Yeah, right. You're absolutely right. We talked about the dorsal sacroiliac ligament in the iliac tuberosity, and here in the auricular sulcus we are talking about the ventral sacroiliac ligament. So the only attachment that we see here in the auricular surface is the ventral sacroiliac ligament. Now talking about the attachments on the pelvic surface. So on the pelvic surface we have one muscle, which is the obturator internus. This large origin is the obturator internus. So it gets originated from the above part or upper half of the obturator foramen. So this is the obturator internus. That is what is originated from the pelvic surface. So hey guys, this is all about today's video. In today's video, we talked about the ilium part of the hip bone, which is the upper part of the hip bone. In the next video, we would be talking about the muscle attachments of the pubis or the ischium or both of them together, depending on how long the video becomes. If the video is too long for each part, then I would make it separately, and if not, we would have it in a single video. So in today's video, we talked about the muscle attachments, that is on the iliac fossa you have the iliacus. Then we talked about the other attachments. I would not recap it again. I would just tell you just like that, just a glance of it. So we have three lips, that is the outer lip, the intermediate lip and the inner lip. We talked about the attachments over there, and then we talked about the attachments on the dorsal segment of the iliac crest. Then talked about the three surfaces attachment, that is the iliac surface, the pelvic surface and the gluteal surface. Sorry, it is four surfaces, that is the auricular surface also. And we talked about the origins, attachments and the ligaments. So this is all about today's video. The notes would be uploaded on my Insta page and my Tele page. The link to those pages would be given in my description below. Do check them out and do follow me on Insta and subscribe me on Telegram also. Also, if any doubt, comment down in the comment section below. Do give this video a like and subscribe if you're new, and keep supporting if you have already been a member of my channel. And until the next video, stay safe, stay home.